All right. Happy Thursday, y'all. Welcome back to Behind the Basket, your go to Thursday evening NBA show. We've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Some awesome game sevens, some playoff matchups as we get into the second round, and just some all around NBA fun facts. Last week, for those who were here, I promised a little bit of stuff about George Mikan. So we're going to get started with that. And if we get the question up there, our question of the week is, who do you think is the most underrated player in NBA history? And I asked that question because I don't think George Mikan is talked about enough. He's a Hall of Famer. His first season was in 1948. So he is the true pioneer of NBA basketball. You know, people talk about Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, but really George Mikan kind of started it all. He averaged 24 points and 14 rebounds during his career, which are great numbers. They didn't even track rebounds his first two seasons, so we don't really know if it's higher or lower than that. He averaged 30 points per game his not freshman year, I guess, but his rookie season, and he had a career high of 15.9 rebounds in a season that it was tracked. The reason I think George Mikan is such a cool dude is he is credited for influencing the goaltending rule. He was kind of the first shot blocker in NBA history. He was, a lot taller, a lot stronger, and more athletic than everyone else. And he was known for just tipping every shot out of the basket.
Can you being like watching the first block? Can you
it's got to be nuts. It's probably like, basketball is such a new game, and there's so many. You see some of those clips where some players are just thrown around these like wild hook shots, but there's actually a surprising amount of George Mikan highlights on YouTube that you can watch, and he's pretty fluid and very athletic. So they introduced the goaltending rule to kind of calm him down a little bit. Blocks weren't recorded, so we don't actually know like how many official blocks he was getting, but it was enough to create a rule. And then the other rule, they call this one the Mikan rule, is that the foul lane, the painted area as they call it, was only 6 feet wide when the NBA was first started. And they doubled that to 12 feet, I think. Well, or 12 feet long, I think. I don't think it's 12 feet wide. But they almost doubled that whole area. And the reason for that was they always had the 3 seconds in the key rule, where you can't stand underneath the basket for more than 3 seconds. You have to step out. They wanted to create a larger space so that Mikan had to stay outside, which would stop him from blocking shots. It would stop him from being so dominant in the paint. So that's another rule that's thanks to him. So the basketball court as we know it. He was the first commissioner of the ABA, which was the NBA rival that had Dr. J, and he kind of was instrumental in the red, white, and blue ball. And then he was also a big reason that the Minnesota Timberwolves exist, because he played for the Minneapolis Lakers before they were moved to Los Angeles. And he has a statue outside of the Timberwolves arena. That's my little my George Mikan fact. So throughout the show, comment who you think is a very underrated NBA player, the most, if you so dare, and give us some reasons. We'll run through those at the very end of today's show.
I feel like I have a good answer. I'm ready for the end of the show.
Got a good answer? All right.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. We just got word of who made Rookie of the Year. I was very happy that it was Ja Morant. It couldn't have been anybody else with his season. Everyone, in the off season, everybody had their money on Zion, but it just didn't work out for him this season. And, Ja Morant, he just came in and made everybody on the team better. And I think that he just had a great breakout year. I'm excited to see what he does. If they build around him, who they bring in, it's going to be a good season next year.
Yeah, Memphis has a really good team. I think Zion would have won Rookie of the Year if he had played more games. The issue is that he only played, I think it was like 24 official NBA games, which just isn't enough. The same thing happened to Joel Embiid. He actually missed his first two full seasons because of injury. And the season he did start playing, which was technically his rookie season,
Hmm.
he did really well, averaged over 20 points a game, but he only played 31 games. And so even though he was the best rookie, he didn't qualify. He just
Really a
didn't
rookie?
play
That's like
enough.
Michael Porter Jr. He's
Or
technically playing for the first time right now, but I think he was drafted the season before last or something. Michael Porter
yeah,
Jr.
he had a bad injury. I don't know how long he was out, but the Ben Simmons is another one.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that Zion will get all kinds of awards at some point, so he's got time.
He definitely has the tools. Another thing, so two big surprises, I think. Well, one of them's not a surprise, but I think it needs to be noted. Brandon Clark, I'm very high on his potential. He is another Memphis rookie, and he got 4th place in
Oh,
Rookie of the Year voting. And I think that just speaks volumes to that young Memphis team. They were battling for 8th in the crowded Western Conference. Ja Morant's Rookie of the Year. Brandon Clark is 4th. They've got a ton of young guys. So
yeah.
if you're a Memphis Grizzlies fan, you got to be really happy right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So then the other news that came out today is that the Brooklyn Nets have hired a coach. And of all people, they hired Steve Nash. I said Steven. But so I don't think anybody was expecting that at all. That one just kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think anybody had him on their radar for a coach position. What do you think about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of coaching vacancies right now in the league. The Knicks just hired Tom Thibodeau. We talked a little bit about that last week. Chicago still needs a coach. Pacers still need a coach. And so does New Orleans with Zion. They're all still looking for coaches.
I think that the Spurs are going to need a coach. Popovich put his house up for sale in San Antonio. And I don't know.
If I'm Greg Popovich, I retire. I don't think he's going to go to another team. Yeah. Maybe he will, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go into the coaching market as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Steve Nash, a lot of people were throwing around names of former head coaches like Tyronn Lue, Mark Jackson, guys like that. And to give an opportunity to a guy like Steve Nash, it kind of threw a lot of people off guard. Mm-hmm. But I'm an advocate for new coaches getting a chance. A lot of coaches were fired because they weren't getting results. Some of them might not have been warranted. Right. You can't really put all the blame on Ty Lue for the Cavaliers not being good when LeBron leaves.
Right.
That's not all on him. But Steve Nash is a very smart player. He's a former MVP. He was a player development coach for the Golden State Warriors when they had KD. So that was a big part of their decision, is his relationship with Kevin Durant. So I don't think it's a bad decision. It's just kind of an unknown, like what's going to happen. You really have no idea what his coaching is going to be like.
Right. And I think that there's only one way to get experience and to become an experienced coach, and that's for someone to give you a chance.
Right.
So I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens. They've got Kevin Durant. They've got Kyrie Irving. They've got a team to build around. They've got a team to play. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Nets could honestly be really scary next year because, if Kevin Durant is anything like he was pre-injury, that alone makes you a playoff team.
Right.
Kyrie Irving's a great player. He's had some chemistry issues, but you can't deny his talent. And then in the bubble, the Nets actually did pretty well behind Karis LeVert. If they keep him, there's been some trade rumors about shipping off some of these guys to get some more veteran depth for Kyrie and KD. But if they keep Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie, that's a tough team out east.
Yeah, they made it to playoffs, so
they did without KD.
Right. So we said goodbye to a few teams in this past week.
Yes, we did.
I will not get too boastful, or I will try to be nice about it, but my team didn't get sent home.
Yeah, so we'll address the elephant in the room. Houston beat out the Thunder in a Game 7, a very tight, very good Game 7. It was very entertaining, even though both of us were about to have a heart attack at the end of that game. But what a series.
As a Rockets fan, I want to say, number one, good job, Oklahoma. Oh my gosh. this I said multiple times this is a rebuild year for Oklahoma.
Mhm.
As much as I respect CP3 as a player and everything, in no way did I think that he was gonna not only take his team to playoffs, but take them to a game 7 with the Rockets. I didn't that would have never, ever, ever been on my prediction list. And
Right.
you know, they had Lou Dort, just oh my gosh, the raw talent, the energy, the just I think that he is going to be something very special to watch over the next couple years. I'm very excited about him being on that team, and I think that there's just it could have been either team with the way that game went out. As much as I would love to sit here and be like my team's better than your team, it honestly anybody could have won that game, and I'm just happy that it was my team. But it was a good game for sure.
It was. The whole series was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And you just, as a Thunder fan, I got to say, I'm just so happy. If we had won that game, there's two sides of it. I think Houston matches up better with the Lakers. That's their next round matchup. I think if OKC wins the series, it would be very, very tough for them because as good of a defensive player as Dort is, he is much better, I think, at handling a guy like Harden than he would be handling a guy like LeBron James. There was a couple, part of what swung that series, and people will joke about some late game turnovers from Russell Westbrook in game 6. Russell Westbrook was a very deciding factor in that game 7.
Yes.
Dort had a much harder time guarding Westbrook. He's very good at reading the dribble moves of James Harden and keeping him from driving. But Westbrook is too explosive for him right now as an undrafted rookie who's still getting experience.
Right.
LeBron kind of has that same play style. So if Dort's not stopping LeBron, I can't name anyone else on that team that will. But Houston's got that switchable defense where, Robert Covington was amazing. PJ Tucker can probably check him a couple times. They've got much better weapons to take on the Lakers next round.
Well, so let's go ahead and just get into playoffs. Houston versus the Lakers. I am not as scared about this series, as I was about Oklahoma because Oklahoma had Lou Dort, who I've never seen anyone guard Harden like that.
Right.
Nobody who could consistently shut him down to where he had to just pass the ball. I've never seen it happen like that over and over and over again. And I don't see anybody on the Lakers being able to do that every game, And of course they'll have their perimeter defenders. I think what's his name? I don't know how to say it.
Kentavious Caldwell Pope. It's a fun name.
Yeah, that's a tricky name. He did well guarding against Portland on the perimeter. Is he going to be able to handle Harden, who's much stronger, and I don't know. Danny Green is probably going to guard him. He's also one of the perimeter defenders, and I don't see them being able to shut Harden down the way that Dort was able to.
I completely agree. I don't think Lakers have anyone who can stop Harden as much as Dort was. And I mean, another thing, props to Dort, he was breaking records with his offensive play in that game 7, where before he was only making an impact on defense and he was atrocious, going like 2 for 18. Yeah, he had 30 points in that game 7 after just throwing bricks for the past couple of games. And he now has the most points by a player under age 21 in a game 7, beating out LeBron James. Of all people, there's a fire under him and he's going to come back with a vengeance, and I'm very excited for it. But again, let's go back to the Lakers. LeBron is not going to guard Harden.
Yeah.
He's going to save himself mostly for the offensive end, which is where he's excelling at this latter point of his career. Caldwell Pope, Danny Green, I can't name anyone else that they would throw at Harden, and even Westbrook. I don't think they're.
I want to say that in one of the games, Kuzma had a little bit of luck guarding Harden. Maybe not luck, but he did okay. It was probably the game that they lost that I'm thinking of because that's why it stuck. But I do think that they put him on Harden one time and he was successful. where they're really going to get them is in the paint. They have Anthony Davis,
Mhm.
who's it's like the David and Goliath story. I mean, like
Yes.
they've got a giant, and we have PJ Tucker, who honestly though, you can't count him out. I mean, yeah, he might not have the size and everything, but his defense, his rebounding even is unreal. I saw him yesterday. One of the rebounds, he jumped like above Steven Adams' head and grabbed it. And I was just like, how did he get that high?
He's all heart.
He he is, in my opinion, the X factor.
All right. Nice hashtag down there, but we'll continue on with the basketball. Where PJ Tucker excels in the NBA, he is the best corner three shooter in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what's going to tip the scales in Houston's favor is him being able to stretch the floor like that. If that's who Davis is matching up against, now he might match up with Covington. Covington's the same way. He shot lights out from three in game 6 and 7. Jeff Green's another one of their kind of power forward guys. He's cannoning from deep. If the Rockets can just open up that floor and Harden and Westbrook can just go to town in the paint because Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee and Anthony Davis are scrambling to the corner to guard PJ Tucker, that might give them some real problems. And then if Houston's tenacious defense can even slow them down a little bit to stop their momentum, it could be a really good, really scrappy series for these two teams.
That's definitely what I expect. The 2 games that they played, that they won against the Lakers, I went and I looked at it, and because I was arguing with somebody online. But,
as we all do.
They said that they're going to get destroyed in the paint. Okay. If Harden is on his game, and he's making all of his shots, yeah, we might get destroyed in the paint. That's 100% possible. But there was one game that we won where it was 2 different scenarios happened. One game, not Harden, but the team scored 21 threes. 21 made threes out of like 57, I think. The Lakers had 2 out of 19. All their points were in the paint, but the Rockets won that game. The next game, Harden was off that night. He wasn't doing too well. It's just one of those nights for him. And Westbrook came in, took over. Oh my God, Jake. Westbrook came in and took over. That night he scored 41 points, but the difference was that they were all in the paint. The Rockets had 68 points in the paint, where the Lakers only had 40. So it depends on who takes over for the night. What star are we going to get that night? And I think that's going to determine how the game goes.
That'll be an interesting dynamic. And that's part of why I think it'll be a good series and why Houston matches up better than Oklahoma does. Oklahoma's definitely a team-based team with Chris Paul kind of as the figurehead. Even though he doesn't lead the team in scoring, he's definitely the leader. But
for sure.
He's kind of at the bottom of the all-star barrel right now as far as just raw firepower. He's one of the most clutch players in the league, but throughout the game, you're going to rely more on a James Harden or LeBron James, and those guys are really going to be the make or break people in this series. And that makes me worry now about the Denver Nuggets moving on to the other series in the West. They came back from a 3-1 deficit. They're the 12th team to do so in NBA history, to be down 3-1 and to come back. They beat the Utah Jazz, which, they just kind of avoided an upset because they're, the 3rd team in the West. So they shouldn't have been down 3-1. Came back. They're gassed. They had one day off before they play. They just tipped off against the Clippers. Jokic and Murray are like we talked about superstar duos. They've got Jokic and Murray, but Murray hasn't really been that superstar until this last series against the Jazz.
Which, real quick, during this series, he was the first to hit 3 40-point plus games since Allen Iverson. That's just he went off this whole series. I can't even
It's been almost 20 years since
Yeah.
Allen Iverson did that. So that shows you how good of a record that is.
But they're not going to have any rest. They finished yesterday, right? And no, the day before
Day
yesterday.
before. Yesterday
And
was their day off.
right, and tonight they go, and Murray I just didn't realize it was going to be that quick. And they asked him, he said, "Wait, when do we play?" And they're like, "You play Thursday." He said, "We only get 2 days off." Like, yeah, they're going to be gassed. They're going to be tired, and against a very well rested 4 days off Clippers team.
That's going to be. I hope it's a good series. You know, we saw some Clippers struggle against the Dallas Mavericks. But Luka Doncic is a generational talent. Jamal Murray definitely played like a generational talent against Utah, but the Clippers have some better perimeter defenders than Utah does. You know, you've got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who are both known as some of the best two-way players in the league.
Right.
They'll probably do a better job at slowing him down. So I think you got to look more to Jokic. People haven't been talking about him as much because it was that Murray-Mitchell duo.
Yeah.
You know, they were breaking records. Donovan Mitchell broke the record for most threes in a series set by Steph Curry.
Wow.
Now, I don't know how many Game 7s Steph Curry's played in. I mean, we remember that phenomenal Game 7 that they lost in the 2016 finals. But those guys were playing out of their mind. But I think you need Jokic because the Clippers don't really have a center that really is a difference maker. You know, they've got Ivica Zubac, and that's it.
Yeah. You know that an interesting thing about the Clippers is that they have never made it past the second round. So, I mean, if they do, this will be a major first for them. You know, I love the Clippers. I love the team. I think that they will take it. But I do have to say that I'm not very fond of Marcus Morris anymore. You know, last week we asked, you think he was playing dirty? And then what was the thing that happened after that? What did he do?
Well, like what? His dirty play, or?
Yeah, he stepped on the ankle, but then what was the thing that he did after that?
He actually got fined for it. I think he got fined $35,000. Luka had driven to the basket and was going up for a layup, and Morris kind of, you know, you do some intentional fouls sometimes when you know that they're going to score on you and you want them to earn it at the line, but he like karate chopped him in the shoulder.
Yeah.
And like both arms just came down really hard on him. And it was clearly, you know, a little too flagrant. Now, do I think that he wanted to hurt Luka, like put him out of commission? I don't know, but that was clearly excessive.
Yeah.
And just unnecessary when you get smoked driving to the basket. You don't need to try to take his arm off.
Right. Yeah, I was just there were so many different things with him in that series that I was just like, I just want them to be nice and play right.
Yeah, well, I do appreciate a little bit of feistiness in the playoffs. I really want the refs to hold on to their whistles, not call any unnecessary technical fouls. I do want them to kind of get into it a little bit.
I agree. I just don't want to see good players getting hurt.
Absolutely.
You know, because then to me, when you win without one of your better players, or if you win when the other team has lost one of their better players, did you really win? You know, would you really have beaten the team? If, you know, I'm about to get back into a Houston Rockets 2015 argument.
There's a lot of series that fans will kind of put asterisks next to.
Yeah.
The most recent probably being last year's finals. The Warriors had a lot of key injuries where people were like, well, did Toronto really win that series? Now, I'm a believer that Toronto would have won if the Warriors were, well, I mean, KD is a problem, but I think Toronto definitely could have won that series. Did the injuries make it easier? Yes, but Toronto also wasn't hacking everybody to get them out. You know, those injuries were just kind of an unfortunate cause of those starters playing heavy minutes and just landing wrong.
But then they Klay Thompson, right, too?
Yep, he had that's why he missed all this season. He had a knee injury, I think, during those playoffs. And I can't remember if it was him or KD or both, I think, were having these injuries before the finals, like in the Western Conference Finals against Portland.
No, that was against the Rockets. Oh, no, Western Conference. You're right. I'm sorry. But
this
no,
was last year. The year before was Rockets, right?
Well, in Western Conference, it was Portland. You're right. But second round, KD got injured in a Rockets game.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay.
I remember watching it and just being like, ugh, because his whole, they did it in slow motion and his whole calf just contracted and just.
I remember.
Yeah. But I specifically remember it was during that game that he got hurt, because then we went on to lose the game. We had a lead and yeah. But yeah, he was definitely dealing with those issues before.
Here's my other thing about the asterisk for a series like that. So Toronto, they beat all their competition in the East. So I forgot that KD had gotten hurt that early. But even with that, and whenever Klay Thompson was hurt, and he was probably having something before that, because you never just, blow up your knee without having some discomfort before.
Right.
The Warriors still came out of the West. They still beat all the other teams. So all Toronto had to do was beat whoever their finals opponent was. The Warriors were still that team, even with injuries. So regardless, that was a fair finals. But you just hate to see anyone get hurt for any reason. Yeah. It waters down the competition. It's just a huge bummer seeing players miss time when they've worked so hard. So but just hope no one else gets hurt for the rest of the year.
This season, it's been such a tough year on everybody.
Yes.
I don't want to see anybody else lose out on their hopes and dreams. I just want an awesome series nonstop. Okay, so the Raptors, going back to them real quick into their series, they actually just won their first game.
Did they just win that? I wanted to look at that.
By 1 point.
By one. Wow.
I could have seen. They have been they're in their third game and they have lost the first two. I don't think anybody was expecting Boston to come out and just dominate like that, but they did. They were playing.
Boston fans were ready for it.
Yes, that's true. I'm sure Jake's in there somewhere saying, I knew. But
Martin knew.
They're playing confident, and they've been shutting down Toronto. Toronto can't seem to find any good scoring opportunities. I wish I could have seen tonight's game. I wish I would have known what happened with that.
Yeah, I forgot to check what was going on. So clearly the difference maker, just looking at the box score, Kyle Lowry played 46 minutes out of 48 minutes in the game, scored 31 points, shooting over 50%.
That is crazy.
So Kyle Lowry definitely put the team on his back. I thought this was going to be a more competitive series. Boston really took those two games just right out of the gate. And I thought that they would kind of match up well because they're two balanced teams that focus a lot on team defense. But, man, Boston was just doing so well offensively. Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker was super clutch in the fourth quarter in their last game. And I think the biggest thing working against Toronto is that you could say, Kyle Lowry, I kind of consider the Chris Paul of the East right now. He's kind of that savvy, stocky point guard leader where he might not be the clear-cut best player from night to night. Like for the Thunder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads the team in scoring,
right?
Different stuff like that. But Kyle Lowry is definitely the leader, but you could debate that their best player is Pascal Siakam. He does a lot of work on the offensive and defensive end, even if he's not the floor general. And he's kind of been a non-factor in this series. Even in this Toronto win, he only scored 16 points, shooting only 6 of 15. and he's their leading scorer. He's their number one all-star. He's kind of their go-to guy when the ball isn't in Lowry's hands, and he's got to step up a little bit more if Toronto wants to take 3 more games out of the series.
Yeah. One cool thing about Toronto tonight, Serge, is it Ibaka?
Ibaka.
He moved up to 8th in all-time blocks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Serge Ibaka is what we called him when he was in Oklahoma.
Well, so actually, back on Kyle Lowry, though, real quick, I was reading earlier that after that first game when, like, Jason Tatum went on and, like, scored 34 points on them and he wasn't making his shots, he went right after the game to the court and started practicing shooting and just, I guess, kept at it, apparently. The second game, they still lost, but they had shut down Tatum a little better. But I guess, I mean, he must have practiced a lot because he made a difference tonight.
Absolutely. And at the very least, they stopped Boston some momentum. Boston goes up 3-0. That series is over. I wouldn't give Toronto a chance. It's so hard to come back from that kind of deficit, especially against a really good team. And without having LeBron James, I guess we could make that a factor.
And you never know. I mean, the Rockets won those first 2 games against Oklahoma, and then Oklahoma won, and then all of a sudden we're at a 7-game series. So you never know what could happen. It can. We'll see.
I'm expecting something closer to that. I will not be surprised if the Celtics rattle off 2 more wins because, like I mentioned last week, they're playing like a championship team. The advanced stats just say so, and they're doing it without Gordon Hayward, which is terrifying because he might be back if the Celtics make it to the finals. We're moving pretty quickly, so I don't know if he'd be in the Western Conference Finals, but getting Hayward back and just adding a little more depth to an already scary team, man, this is just such a fun playoffs. Everyone is doing so well, and it honestly, anyone can come out of this.
That I just the bubble. I mean, from going all those months without sports like that, it was hard for me, honestly, because I love basketball. I love it. And having to go to just absolutely nothing at all, this has made up for all of it. The bubble, all the cool, funny stories to come out of the bubble, the amazing players that we hadn't even noticed before, I think it's just been the coolest, just the coolest thing about this year so far.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard not being able to, not playing in front of fans definitely is a lot different for these players. I know a lot of them feed off of that. They love, performing for the fans. It's hard being away from home for so long. The players' families are now officially there at the bubble, so that's got to be a relief for them. So it had to have been very hard on the players still, but I bet you that they're just loving this unique experience because the games have just been so awesome, and they're putting everything they have into these games. And as a fan watching from home, it's almost more entertaining because everything's just so competitive. I love it.
It's like we said in the first show, it's basketball. It's just basketball. That's what we're watching, and it's raw, and it's just it's so fun to watch. Everybody is doing they're working out as a team together every day. There's team building just being together in this experience. It's just such a cool thing.
Yeah, definitely. Props to the NBA for putting that together.
So then we've got the Bucks and the Heat. I wasn't expecting this. The Heat is winning 2-0. I didn't get to see the crazy game last night. You said that you saw the ending of it.
Yeah, so the game was won on, there was a very questionable foul on Jimmy Butler at the very end by Giannis. And with time expiring, he made free throws to win the game. The reason that there hasn't been a huge outcry about it is because right before that, there was a questionable call, I think, on Chris Middleton, where Dragic was just straight up in the air. And just, it looked like picture perfect defense. and they called a foul on it, and a lot of people thought, oh, that's a weak foul. It tied the game, and the Jimmy Butler foul was kind of retribution. So I don't know what to think of it, but the fact of the matter is that the Heat are really putting the Bucks to work. The Bucks were championship favorites, or at least finals favorites from the East, and they're just not looking like it. Miami's another just Eastern Conference patented defense where they're just doing a great job at containing Giannis and containing his cast members. And I could not believe that the Bucks went down 2-0 or 0-2, I guess. That's just crazy to me.
So right now in playoffs, the Heat is undefeated. That's crazy to think of that.
Yes, they might be the last undefeated team because the Celtics started 6-0 and then they just lost this game. So as of now, I think the Heat are the only undefeated team in the playoffs, which is they're a good team. I wouldn't have expected it either. I didn't doubt that they could definitely stretch the Bucks thin and give them some problems, but I didn't think they'd take the first two games. I thought at best it would be 1-1. Because as great of a leader as Jimmy Butler is on the court and a great distributor, great defender, his shooting has been one of the worst in the league. He's just not scoring at a very efficient clip. He gets to the line, which is where he gets most of his points, but his shooting has been awful. And then he scores, I think this was against the Bucks in game 1. I think he scored like 40 points on them. I'll have to.
Well, I'm looking at the last game right now. And it looks like they scored 17 threes, whereas the Bucks only scored 7. But I was trying to check. Okay, well, the Bucks scored 20 more points in the paint, but 3 points are more than 2 points, So I mean. I guess that I don't know. I'm trying to see exactly like where the differences were in their stats,
Yeah, I mean, you take away the threes for the Bucks, they're kind of in trouble because that's kind of their game. You've got Giannis, who is kind of a drive and kick kind of guy. He either drives and finishes, which he's tops of the league in that, or he kicks it out to a 3-pointer, and that's kind of the whole system. And then you get some occasional ball handling from Eric Bledsoe and Chris Middleton, but they kind of thrive off of what Giannis brings to the table. And if they really made less than 10 threes in a game, that makes a huge difference. But at the same time, you would think if they're cutting off those threes that maybe they weren't stopping Giannis as well, but they're doing both. So that is some phenomenal defense.
Now, Eric Bledsoe, he was out of the first game, but he did play the second game. He had a hamstring issue. So
I didn't know he was out the first game.
Yeah, but the second game, he was definitely there. He scored 16 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. I mean, a good night.
It'll help them going forward to have Bledsoe. And I did check, Jimmy Butler did have 40 points in that first game. So he's definitely stepping up to the plate. And they're a deep team too, Miami. And to go back to our Rookie of the Year talk, there was not a single vote for Tyler Hero, which I think is an absolute travesty because RJ Barrett got a vote. Terrence Davis, who's averaging 7 points, got a vote. And nothing for Tyler Hero. So I just want to, for all the Tyler Hero fans out there, I'm with you. I think he was robbed of being at least in that top 8. I don't think he would have been any higher than 5th. At least having a vote. I think he should be 5th for the top 5 Rookie of the Year voting. But yeah, there's my soapbox moment there. More respect to Tyler Hero.
Well, so, I mean, what do you think? Do you think the Bucks are? I don't know. I mean, I don't know who's going to take this.
It's
last week I would have said Bucks, easy.
Mm-hmm. Right, same.
But now I don't know.
It's very tough to say because of recency bias, being that Miami won the last 2 games, so it makes sense to bet on them for the next 2, as well as momentum. Miami has the momentum.
Exactly.
The Bucks are the people who have to make adjustments and play better. Now, I thought that Miami would at least take the Bucks to 6. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game still goes to 6 if the Bucks can at least get 2 games back, or if they're even able to make it a 7-game series. But I think it's going to be a lot more competitive than we thought before the series began. So I guess we could rattle off some playoff predictions for this second round.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Miami in 7. I think Miami is going to take a surprise. And as much as I love Giannis and how much I advocate for him being MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, I think that they're going to put it together, get some wins, but Miami, I think, is going to come out on top. People forget, too, Giannis is only 25, so all the people saying, like, oh, he's horrible, he doesn't perform in the playoffs, he should leave the Bucks. He's a young guy still getting experience. I wouldn't count him out just yet.
I guess I'm gonna go with you, Miami. I'm gonna say Miami in 6, though. That's gonna be my prediction.
I can see it. I want Bucks to win because I really want Giannis to just start catapulting himself into GOAT conversations because he's such a good guy.
It doesn't feel right to be like, oh, number 1 seed, they're not going to make it. But
I know, but they're having troubles.
Yeah, so I'm going to say Miami in 6. Okay, Raptors and Celtics.
I think Celtics take it in. I think they'll take it in 6. I think Raptors have figured out a game plan that works where they're able to edge out this win, but it was still very close. And Jason Tatum played pretty poorly based on the box score. So Jason Tatum plays well. I think Celtics win 2 games. Toronto wins 1 more. Celtics in 6.
I'm going to say Celtics in 5 because I think that, like you said, they're playing like a championship team. And yes, we've got the former reigning championships playing, but I don't know. I think Boston takes it in 5.
Yep, and their wins have been more commanding as well. Toronto barely squeaked this one out.
Right. It was. I mean, like, I'm gonna have to go see what actually happened with the game and everything, but I know that whenever I was checking on it earlier, people were pretty confident that the Celtics were going to win again. So, I mean, that doesn't bode well for how the Raptors were playing that entire time, Right.
Yeah, there had to have been some just late game struggles because the last I saw, Celtics were up by 10. I think they were up at 10 at the half. But in NBA basketball, a double-digit lead doesn't mean a whole lot.
even having 2 seconds left on the clock doesn't mean anything.
Right. That 2 seconds will turn into an hour of just some scrappy play that could lead to a clutch bucket. But I agree. I think Celtics take this, but I'm just Toronto's a good enough team. I think they can squeak out 1 more win.
All right. Well, I think this is where we're going to disagree. Rockets versus Lakers.
So I know you want the Rockets to win, and I want a competitive series. No. Okay. Yeah. I'm not opposed to the Rockets winning because there are just some Lakers fans in the world that rub me the wrong way. There are some Lakers fans that I respect and adore, but there's a bit of my love of rooting against the bandwagon, so to say.
Yeah.
Even though I was totally on the Bucks train because of Giannis. I love Giannis as a person and as a player. I wouldn't mind seeing Russell Westbrook play well for Houston and get a win here. But I don't think they will. But I'm going to say it goes – I want to see another 7-game series. I think it's going to be a Lakers in 7.
Okay.
But I don't think Houston's going out without a fight. I think they're going to give Lakers a lot of problems, and it'll be enough where just pure scoring from Harden can push them over the top in some games. But at the end of the day, I'd say Lakers come out.
I'm going to firmly disagree. Okay. Houston, I'll give you 7 games. I can agree with that. I think that it's going to be tough. There's definitely going to be games that they lose. But I see Houston taking this one. Now,
I know you do.
I think that the Clippers are a worse matchup for the Rockets. So will they get out of Western Conference if they make it? I don't know. But I know everybody tells me that there's this thing called playoff LeBron. I don't know anything about it. So
he's been out east all this time. He might give Houston a rude awakening.
That's I mean, everybody's saying that playoff LeBron is a real thing, and that may be. I don't know. I'm as I've said many times, I'm just not on the LeBron hype train. I'm not. I think he's a great player. I think he's one of the best, but you're not going to find me cheering for him. And I definitely think that the Rockets can take this.
I think they can. I don't think they will. And I think playoff LeBron is still a thing, but I think he's going to manifest himself in different ways than he did in Cleveland. His last years in Cleveland were kind of the legendary playoff LeBron years where he was head and shoulders above the rest of his teammates. He totally carried. He was averaging 30 points plus for like every series. But he's kind of taken more of a distributor role, leading the league in assists. So he's found different ways to hurt you. At the same time,
Sorry.
Oh, hello, Kat. I don't know if LeBron has had a teammate as good as Anthony Davis. Now, not all time. His best teammate was clearly Dwayne Wade, but kind of an injury-riddled Dwayne Wade that took a second fiddle role. Whereas Anthony Davis is leading the Lakers in every statistic except for assists, which is where LeBron has taken that role. And LeBron, he kind of started picking up towards the end of that Portland series, and it's been a while since we've seen him play a game, so we'll just have to – that black cat was for LeBron. Is that good luck or bad luck?
Nick, sweetie, my cat is she's a good luck cat for the Rockets. She's one of the Rockets' biggest fans. She has a cat jersey, which I'll get into in just a minute, a sports superstition, but she is a good luck Rockets cat. Absolutely.
Yes. I forgot we were going to talk about the sports superstition, so let's wrap up this last one, Clippers Nuggets. I think this is going to be possibly – maybe it won't be, because I was about to say it might be the least competitive series just because of how much the Nuggets struggled at first against Utah. But, man, there's an Eastern bloodbath right now. Celtics and Miami really putting the works on the higher-seeded teams. But I think Clippers are going to take this in – I'm going to say they might take it in 5, but I'm going to say 6.
I wrote down Clips in 5 for me. So Clips in 6.
I like being a little generous to the other team, mostly because I want it to be more competitive. But Kawhi Leonard has been unbelievable so far.
Yes, and Kawhi is Kawhi. I mean, like you said, one of the best two-way players, reigning MVP. I love his personality. It's so dry and just I think he's like one of the funniest guys in the world without even trying to be. I love Kawhi. Oh, I wanted to bring up when we talked about that, playoff PG is a thing too, apparently.
Yes, it is now.
I don't think it's a good thing like LeBron's.
It's definitely not. It's the playoff PG 13% and he was a big part of the reason that Mavs were able to take some games until he turned it on in that clinching game 5 or 6 or whatever, probably 6, scored 30 points. But he struggled for Oklahoma as well in the last 2 playoffs, which were both first-round exits. Right. For some reason, he's not showing up in the playoffs, but maybe being in the second round for a change and being able to lean on Kawhi will boost him up a little bit. Plus, Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell are the best bench in the league on their own. And there's not a lot of guys in Denver that can check them.
We'll see. I definitely say Clips in 5. That's okay. So, sports superstition rituals. Do you do anything weird?
I don't. Personally, as a fan, I don't have anything strict I turn to. Sometimes, like, I'll put on a Thunder shirt. I've got a couple different Thunder gear that I'll put on for a game, but it's never like the same one. And I'm never like freaking out if I don't have one on. But I know there's some fans that go to extreme lengths, and even players to a degree have some kind of, routines and rituals that they follow for good luck or whatever.
So I just basically give myself credit for the Rockets winning last night because I'm a huge believer in just superstition rituals. I had on my lucky jersey, my lucky sweatpants, which I wore that jersey every time the Rockets won. The When they lost, I had accidentally put on my kid's jersey, which fits the same, like they're the same size, but his neckline is cut like a men's and mine's a girl's jersey.
Mhm.
So I mixed them up and I wore the wrong jersey and they lost. So just okay, hold on. There's that. My cats have jerseys that match mine. They're very awesome. And the black cat, she doesn't like to wear her jersey, but the fat cat that's always running around, she'll wear it. And I posted pictures of it last night. I'm very proud of my cat and her jersey. And let's see what else. I had my Rockets blanket. But what I think won the game last night was every game day, I listened to a song. I don't know even know if you know it. It's called Still Tippin'. You ever heard of it? Oh my
Mm-mm.
God. Okay, it's Houston rap, right?
You'll link it to me after the
I
show.
will have to. It's got Mike Jones and Paul Wall and just like a lot of rappers that came out of Houston.
Mhm.
And yeah, so in that last little second that they had to play and they needed to hold on to the ball, I pressed play on that song and they won. So I feel like, maybe it's a little bit all over the top, but it worked.
Who knows? You just got that H-Town spirit.
Yeah.
We'll have to look up some more of the, and maybe that'll be a question for next week. We can ask some of
Yeah.
our viewers what they're. So keep that in mind. Come back. We'll make that our question of next week. What kind of superstitions or rituals you guys have? I'll look at to see if any NBA players have some. I can think of a couple, but I'll save them. We only got about 7 minutes left, so we are going to now go to our question of the week, which is, who do you think is the most underrated player or underappreciated player, I guess you could say, in NBA history? I talked about George Mikan being probably the first pioneer of basketball. His jersey isn't retired. I think it should be either by, I mean, he was a Laker, so I think Lakers should retire it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he gets talked enough about his impact to the game. And you said you had a good one. Who do you think is your most underrated NBA player of all time?
Okay, now, and I just want to be clear about the all-time thing.
If it's Patrick Beverley.
It's not Patrick. It's
Okay.
not playing now. But I don't know the deep history very much. I try and learn as much as I can because I'm coming into it later in life.
Mhm.
But I went and I read about a lot of players and everything. I chose Tim Duncan.
Okay.
Now, he was one of the biggest players in the 2000s, right? But he came out at the same time as Kobe Bryant and Allen Iverson and Kevin Garnett, And so I mean, he got respect. Don't get me wrong, but I thought there was some cool stuff about him. His nickname was the Big Fundamental, because his bank shot, making the shots off the glass, and they had asked him, or maybe they asked they asked Popovich, why don't people shoot like Duncan? Why don't they do that bank shot more? And he said, because it's just not cool. But he would do it every game. Like, that was his shot. His basketball IQ was off the charts. He was a great rebounder. He was a solid defender. He led the Spurs to 5 NBA titles. And I read an article that said he had an old man offensive game. Like he that's why they called him the Big Fundamental. So that's my player.
Yeah, I love Tim Duncan, and I actually like that pick because when people talk about their all-time top tens, I don't think he's getting enough respect because he wasn't that flashy. He's
Exactly.
highlight reels aren't the ones being shared on social media, but he is an all-time great two-way player with, all the titles, MVP. He's a phenomenal player. So I actually, even though he is one of the best players, I don't hate that pick for underrated NBA player of all time. And whoever's backstage, let's see, Brian Scalabrine. I don't know if if you remember the jokes. There was a lot of memes. He bounced around some teams for a while, I think, but the team I remember him being on is the Celtics championship team. He's a fan favorite, but he plays like single digits
Oh,
minutes.
I do
Redhead
remember.
guy.
Okay.
I think he's in a media analyst or something now, and he's basically the Chuck Norris of NBA basketball talk. It's just kind of like, oh, well, Brian Scalabrine is the best. All right, most underrated player of all time, Kyle Lowry. Most overrated player of all time, James Harden. Now we
And we're
can
gonna
talk about
talk about
overrated later. Kyle Lowry is underrated. Now, I don't think he's going to be vaulted in all-time talks when he retires as far as all-time point guards. But as far as current players, I 100% agree. He's an underrated leader, he's an underrated passer, and he's an underrated defender. So I like that. Got any more? Most underrated is tough. Maybe Scotty playing along Michael. A lot of people attribute his success to Michael Jordan. The hard part for me is we didn't really get to see prime Pippen play without Michael, and we just didn't. Michael retired, and Pippen was kind of way past his prime when he was in Portland. So hard to say if he's underrated or not, in my opinion. I don't know what you think.
I don't know. In my opinion,
Kirk Heinrich. Now, I don't really remember a lot about Kirk, so I'll have to look him up. I think he was a Chicago Bull at one point, and I remember him being decent. He probably was a better role player than maybe I'm remembering, and that's probably why he's on the underrated pick list.
I'm gonna go look up all of these people when this is over, just so I can learn about them.
Ben Wallace, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year.
That's impressive.
And how many times do you hear people name dropping Ben Wallace?
Never.
Not a lot. Elton Brand, he was a very good player, and I do. Well, I mean, there's just some names that you don't hear a lot. Elton Brand's one of them. He's in a leadership position with the 76ers. He's another guy that I don't just remember his career accolades off the top of my head, but I remember him being very solid. So I guess this is why they're underrated. I need to learn more about them. I don't have them on the top of my head.
Well, just to address Shane real quickly, why do you think that James Harden is overrated? How is he overrated when he's scoring? I don't understand the Harden hate. I don't get it.
Here's my perspective on the Harden hate. Now, he's an MVP. He's been in multiple MVP talks, although I don't think he should have won any of the other ones besides the one he did.
Okay.
And he's leading the league in scoring. You know, he's got some good assist numbers, triple doubles. I think most people they don't like his style of play. It is not, in most people's mind, it's just not the most beautiful basketball where he does a lot of dribbling at the top of the key, step back three. The two-step king.
Okay. So would you say that James Harden uses the rules to his advantage?
You know, I guess you could say he does. And the other approach is it's the Daryl Morey. James Harden's not a leader. Jake's back. It's the Daryl Morey analytics-based approach where the three is more profitable than the two. Mm-hmm. It gets you more points per possession, and Harden is the best step-back three-point shooter in history. So statistically, it makes sense, but sometimes fans just want to see something weird and wild and just not the statistical play at the top.
Kobe Bryant once studied the entire officials' manual book and learned where they had to stand. Then he had his friends go stand there and find out where their blind spots were so that he was able to foul other players and make shots without getting in trouble for it, using the rules to his advantage.
I love that story so much.
James Harden, of course, obviously I'm not saying James Harden is on Kobe level, but I am saying the style of play is just a different mentality, you know? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
It's definitely working for him. He's scoring buckets, you know, I think if we're talking about James Harden, he is a very underrated finisher at the rim. I am blown away by how good his drives are. You know, people talk about the two-step king and stuff, which I roll my eyes at those plays a lot, but he can beat you to the basket as good as anyone in the league. So I will give him props for that. Does that mean I enjoy watching him play that much? No, but he is
After
one of the top players in the league, no matter
that
which way you
loss
cut it.
last night, I don't ever want to hear none of y'all ever tell me that he can't play defense. Because
Lou
he
Dort will
saved
pump fake that next year. He's an undrafted rookie. He's still getting his bearings
I'm
after
just saying
a
it was
surprise
a
30-point game.
it was a total defining moment. We're going over.
All right. Well, we had some good talks. Thanks everyone for joining us. Fun times. We'll get to know some of these underrated players a little bit better as fans. Tune in next week. We'll talk a little bit about some fan superstitions and some player rituals and stuff. It'll be good, and we'll continue on these NBA playoffs next Thursday.
We're going to next week. We're going to start doing some less known rules. Start going over just the game of basketball itself. We'll see y'all next week.
Yeah, go through that Kobe rulebook, everyone.
Yes.